Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Awakening Truth Make Up Your Power podcast. I am Nicole, your host, along with my co host Tina and Stephanie here today, back for a new week of sharing truths and conversations that you may not feel the most comfortable talking or hearing or acknowledging, but it's real life experience. So you might as well have the conversations because if we can have the uncomfortable conversations, then we can sit better with who we are as people. And today we are talking about what was it called? Because I don't have it in front of me. The truth.
The truth and how it feels threatening.
Yes. Um, which can be looked at from a couple different perspectives when we talk about that. Because when we're used to people pleasing or bending over for others, and then we start wanting to step into our power, which is our truth, there can be consequences, right? That can kind of come up. And with that being said, I kind of want to open with the energy forecast. So today we've got like Venus moving into Leo, sextiling Uranus and Gemini. Uranus has already been playing around in Gemini, which I'm excited about because the next 7, 8 years of our lives are going to be completely transformative, just like when Uranus transited Taurus, how our false belief system started crumbling, whether that was systematic, publicly, personally. Um, so our false stability. And now with it moving into Gemini, where it's going to be a lot of communication based, community based, our authentic truth, and not over explaining for shit. So that's kind of really beautiful energy. And when we're sextiling with Venus moving now into Leo, we've got Venus, which is like the planet of love, right? Relationships. Um, when Venus energy happens, a lot of times people can do like a change of how they want to dress, how they want to look. They might suddenly change their hair color. Always be careful during retrogrades and doing that because usually by the time it goes direct again, you end up regretting that move. So keep that in mind. But anyways, with the Leo energy, we have the sun, right? We've got what could be the ego, but we also have an opportunity for creativity, surprise, success, not surprise, but success. Being more playful, more childlike in our wonder. So having that Venus and Leo sextiling with the Uranus and Gemini, it's real beautiful. But we also just had the Gemini new moon that just came in yesterday, which well into today, which is really beautiful energy because with the Uranus going into Gemini like it has, and then having this new moon, it's really ushering in what we've been trying to kind of put into fruition, right? So some systems or some things that we've been trying to build that we wanted to see um, really go out there into the world, we're now starting to see that, especially this week. New opportunities align with that being able to hit the ground running. So I'm kind of excited to see how that plays out because of it's playing out in my seventh and my fifth house. Um, so for me, I'm kind of curious because I think it's going to be, yeah, we'll just see how it unfolds. I look forward to it. But collectively, I wanted to just share before we go because this does play into what we're talking about today. And collectively, more people are breaking the acceptable script. So it's more about being more honest, is becoming more unavoidable. We also have debates about authenticity is getting louder. Because Gemini wants the facts and Venus Leo wants sincerity, you can definitely feel that. Identity shifts are accelerating, people changing their public narrative, their boundaries, or their creative direction faster than they used to. So you might start seeing also that can look like a shift that will end up happening of really seeing influencers or people in the public eye more for what they are, or seeing them kind of shifting and trying to show up more authentic and moving away from um, the control aspects of creativity. Like, because let's be real, for a long time, creatives were told there's no money there, and or they were kind of manipulated by more powerful financial people who kind of ran the show like they were puppets. So you're kind of seeing that shift in wanting more creative freedom. So I love that as well. So when it comes to truth being uncomfortable, I think it's how long have you been living somebody else's truth rather than your own truth? And with that, I'll kind of shut up and let my ladies kind of jump in on how this is kind of showing up for you guys.
Um, I think I'm going to tie it back to the conversation we had about fear based anxiety and how this from a human nature perspective, we tend to go back and lean into what we know is going to happen. So that predictability, even though it's not going to feel right or it's not going to feel good, but we know what the outcome will be. When your nervous system is in that threatening fight or flight mode, it's wired for predictability. It's not authentic, right? So it is very hard to be authentic in a state of fear. And that's why grounding is so important for a lot of people, because even those painful patterns feel safer than that unknown freedom. So I think when I look at just looking at starting my coaching business, there's that fear. I don't just drive through the day like everything's hunky dory. There's a fear that, is this going to work? And those limited belief systems really need to I need to deal with them more. I need to continue to keep them in my boundaries, and I need to continue to show up every day as my authentic self without that fear of somebody trying to make me feel like there's a pattern that's going to lead to failure.
Hmm. That's that whole identity shift, man. And I'm
Yep.
loving seeing it as well because I think there's something powerful when we just stop and we start. Because I was thinking about this, like there's definitely a difference between um performing who you are and then actually speaking your truth and matching like how your body feels into it. Like I think there's more of a connection. Like we're seeing more that our words are carrying more weight. So with that, I think we're wanting to really step into being more truthful and authentic on how we're showing up with
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I think, the truth screams this isn't working anymore, and your body hears we're losing control. So when you take those two messages, your body takes those signals, and all of a sudden you're in this space that you just feel like threatened and like not even in control of your true self.
Stephanie, if you want to, makes me think of what you could just kind of shared an overview when it comes to that. Like if somebody's own truth or performative truth, we'll say, um, is worried about being exposed by others that see their real truth. Like it just seemed, you know what I mean? Kind of seemed on par with what you were talking about something with trash today. So that's why I was kind of just like, when you were talking, there's just something about like, and I didn't want to take it from you. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to kind of, if you wanted to, it just seems because there is definitely a shift in
Mhm.
like performative versus real, right?
Right. And just with everything that's been going on the past few weeks or more, um, the egg shucking and being careful what we say, and I was even being careful what I posted because I didn't want, to start anything. But it just so happened that, somebody blocked me on Facebook. And so now I don't know. I went and blocked them on all other social medias along with their spouse because you don't want access to me, you're not getting access to me. And I obviously didn't want access to you. So it's, that energy is now pulling, it took itself away. The trashy energy is now gone. And
You didn't have to
hopefully
look.
this is a movement for others in my life that, what'd you say?
I said, you didn't even have to lift a finger.
Oh, right. And so hopefully this is a movement forward to others in my life that are kind of involved in the situation and looking to, leave that energy and stop masking and performing and, um, for other people, for their narratives and moving on to their own. So hopefully this is a step forward. I want to break free. Yeah.
That's a song that just popped. I want to break free. I heard it just like that as you were talking. I was like,
Is that a real song?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. I want to break.
Yes.
And that's the only part that I know. That's all I get. So I get the message that I'm needing to get. There are so many songs that I don't know when they come in, but I like how because I think this has really been playing out for a lot of people, like for everybody, because these energies are collective and it's kind of like the masking. The masks are being taken off or being exposed. Um Performative is being shown. But you also have like you were saying, T, when we're kind of stepping more into our truth, there is that kind of fear of like rejection, and being more authentic. When you're saying the trash takes itself out, can have some loneliness, because when we're reclaiming our personal truth with other people who will die on the hill with their own perception of what their reality of truth looks like, I mean, it's kind of like clashing of the tides. Like they're just going to kind of maybe hit and then come apart, because we're just kind of in that place where people need to see the truth. Or, mm-mm, sorry, I'm being corrected. People need to feel the truth instead of
So,
being told what the truth is.
right. So most people don't fear truth. They fear the implications of it. They fear the consequences that come
Mhm.
along with how you're feeling in that space. So if I admit that Nicole said something that hurt me, I'll have to stop tolerating it, right? So there's me saying what the truth is and then what the consequence is, or the implication, whichever word you want to use. And you have to be ready for that. So like Stephanie said, somebody made the first move
Mhm.
and then she felt much more comfortable making the second move,
Knowing that,
right?
that she probably wanted that move to happen anyways. Yep.
Right. The truth was there, but the implication was a
Yeah.
bit scary. And it's family. So everything's always kind of sketchy when it comes to family, because even though we're supposed to be who we are and people are supposed to love us for who we are, there's still a level of judgment there.
Man, in my time, I have learned that people, like,
Definitely.
when you said that, like this thought was people are supposed to love you for who you are. When you said that, naturally, I used to like agree with that. And then I've come to a place of we're supposed to love who we are, and those who will share that same kind of love will naturally come to us. We won't have to do anything, and they will naturally fall away from us, like Stephanie. She didn't have to do anything.
Right.
That's kind of the energy shifting that's happening. And how you can know if that shift is happening and you're being playing resistant, then you might be seeing more difficult conversations, interactions, a little more drama kind of trying to show up, for clearing, for understanding, for truth.
And I think when you pull the curtains back around your truth, the parts of you that you've kept in that dark, and in that sacred place, they're not necessarily bad things, but you've hid them because they're very tender. You're sensitive to them. You're worried about who's going to be hurt if this comes out. How is it going to affect me, right? We spend a lot of our time wanting to do the right thing, and a lot of times that right thing ends up causing more harm.
We have no The thing of it is, when you step into your own truth and you step into your own authenticity, a big part that comes with it is not holding on to how the consequence is going to unfold or what people are going to think of it, because then we're stepping back into people pleasing dynamics. You know what I'm saying? So
I don't know. I think yes, I agree with that, but I also going to challenge it with I think you're going back into survival mode. Like there are certain people that you want to be authentic with, and you want to be very careful the word you use, and you want to make sure that you're remaining authentic to yourself
and meeting people where they're at still.
Right. Right. So when you're in that survival space, you somehow need to figure out what's that balance. I'm not gonna do people pleasing, and I refuse to allow anybody to breach my boundaries. Yet I still have a relationship, a connection, or a responsibility over here. Whatever that is. I just got to figure out, you know, instead of people pleasing, how do I remain strong? How do I remain quiet? Where do I allow myself to let them do the work, but kind of come in at the end when maybe they just need someone to help finish it? So you're not completely absent, but it doesn't allow you to be sucked in to that negative energy.
Like sitting more in an observation mode.
Limiting yourself.
Right.
Authenticity doesn't need explanation. And that's the biggest thing that I'm starting to learn. Like I thought for a while, authenticity meant over explaining myself.
No.
You know what I mean?
Like
but now I realize that my authenticity shows more in the quiet. It shows more in the intentional words when I do speak them.
What's the key word? Intentional.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right? When we speak words, we don't always speak with intent, and it ends up hurting somebody that we didn't want to hurt. We were just trying to explain the why.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like with what's happening with intentional too is that we're being more mindful, because if you're going to be intentional, then that means that you have to be mindful of your thoughts, right? Because in order to be intentional, that means that you're intending a certain outcome, being more deliberate, right? So if your thoughts are just limited in their beliefs, or they're running on a circuit from somebody else's impact that they had on you, meaning like whatever experience you might have had from somebody, that plays the record of your leading thoughts, right? Because it's important, because if we're not conscious of what our thoughts are producing, then how we are able to show up is either going to be more threatening to ourselves or could be more threatening to others. Does that make sense? So like
It does, because when you show up in that sense, you're remaining true to yourself from an authentic perspective, from an identity perspective, from a boundary perspective. Like you're not losing yourself in these conversations, but you may be unraveling things that are very uncomfortable, and that's why it's so important to remain curious and judgment free, and staying in that moment and being transparent, because and I think I actually have a slide. It's like what I found in the silence as part of my coaching. It was the silence where I learned that when you're honest with yourself, you stop being convenient, you stop over functioning, you stop absorbing other people's projections, you stop playing the role they expect, and you just play you.
Absolutely, without all the layers of programming that were put onto you.
Yeah. The ecosystem of that relationship was built around your old self.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a lot of work to reprogram
I
that.
think too, Nicole, you talked about being intentional with your words. I think too, being intentional with our absence and our silence, because I think that makes people step back and think, why why is there no more talking from this person? Why is this person not being around me anymore? And I think that will open up and take off a mask, um, or take the masks off when they're starting to notice that absence and that silence.
Or can they, and I only say this because I'm a true Scorpio, when you go silent on me, I will make you talk. I will find out why you don't want to talk to me. Because if you look at the word intention, if you lead your life with true intent, you're being honest to yourself. And that honesty isn't always going to be received well. We've already talked about having boundaries, and boundaries with family is like the hardest. But I think when you come with intent or you just practice being an intentional individual, everything else will just flow. You will not lose yourself as long as your intentions are true.
Mhm. To you and not to others. Absolutely.
Correct.
Because the truth is gonna be
Correct.
uncomfortable. When you're
Right.
authentic, that
Mhm.
means that somebody might end up feeling discomfort. Because if especially if they're not living in their authentic truth, you
Right.
will create more discomfort for them, but that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean pull back on the reins of authenticity. That means keep showing up that way because you're giving an opportunity for somebody to really be able to, see the error of the ways or sit with the fact that, wait a minute, that kind of looks pretty good. I want a taste of that. I want to see what that feels like or what that looks like. Because when you mention the true Scorpio of hitting people up, a lot of the times, man, I love a good uncomfortable conversation. I really, really do. Big
It's
part of this
growth.
podcast. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
growth.
because I had to have a lot of uncomfortable conversations with myself and with what I was, how I knew I could show up different, even if I didn't necessarily have the tools. But that's the thing, guys, is that we don't need to build this shame and guilt game. We can just kind of like know that truth can be uncomfortable, um, especially when we're trying to navigate our own. But there's so many beautiful, and this could be very Scorpio energy too. There's so many pieces found in the shadows of discomfort that really start opening up opportunities for you to get comfortable in. Does that make sense? Because growth doesn't happen if you just live in comfort. I'm sorry to tell you, it doesn't. It doesn't. You need to be made uncomfortable, just like a diamond. It needs pressure in order for it to become a
Always.
diamond, right?
I always tell people, like in life, if you're starting something new and you're not nervous and uncomfortable, I'm worried for you because you should be
Mhm.
nervous and uncomfortable because that's the only way you're going to get comfortable. Push yourself outside your comfort zone.
Confidence comes after the scary thing, guys. Always. I know that 100%. And on the other thing, what if we just had a little delusion for a minute and we decided to say, listen, every experience that we're physically living right now has already happened, okay? I mean, I believe this to be truth, but we'll say this is a delusion just for people who are maybe new to listening to this kind of rhetoric or this kind of way of talking, right? Think of it as like you've got this big scary situation, this conversation you want to have, maybe this job you want to go do, maybe this relationship you want to end, whatever it looks like to you, no contact family member, and you just start looking at it as opportunities instead of acting like, sorry, I got sidetracked on my thought because I just saw a card. Where was I first at with the thought? Because
Delusional.
living in the delusion. Oh, that it's already happened. The timeline's already happened, and all you're doing is
Mhm.
living it out now.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. Truth removes the illusion of later, which means that truth collapsed with it for that timeline. And
Mhm.
now all of a sudden you're kind of like backpedaling your way into something that's already kind of occurred.
Yes. So might as well live your delusion and being like, listen, this experience already happened. Because if you sit with, and these are a great way to build personalized tools, if you start sitting with the situations prior to, if in my body I'm feeling all this in my chest, though this is my truth, but sit with yourself. Okay, I want to have this truth with this person. Okay, well, what does that look like? Maybe try role playing it out. I know this sounds weird, and this might be a lot because of me going to school to become a therapist, and I'm really like in my zone right now with all of it right now. But really sitting with the role play of what that conversation could look like could also help you in feeling better prepared, no matter what it is, even if the conversation doesn't even end up coming up or doesn't end up being had or ends up being looking completely different. When we can get ourselves kind of more prepared in that essence, we'll stay more out of what ifs. So our truth will feel more less threatening and more powerful. Does that make sense?
Well, it does because the conversation originally feels like a lot of pressure. It's a lot of
Mhm.
pressure for the person who you may be confronting or may be having that conversation with. But in reality, it's actually going to end up being very liberating for both parties, right? They walk away with that sense of, all right, that's over, that's done. Now I get it. Understand why she did it. Understand why he said that. I I jumped right to conclusions. I made assumptions. Like all this clarity suddenly just comes to the surface, and a lot of, and hopefully, you've learned from that. I've had to practice myself. All right, I've seen this before. This is not new. There's different players, but the situation is very similar. So let me go back and to my vault and think about how we got through it the last time and navigate it the same way.
Yeah, because you get a new layer of
So,
awareness.
Tina, it's kind of funny that you bring that topic up, um, about feeling a certain way about like a relationship you're having, and then you have this uncomfortable conversation. I did that last year, after I lost my friend. Um, um, I had made a post on social media, and another person who was really close to me reached out asking what was wrong, and we had a phone conversation. And I actually told her that I felt like I lost her too, because it was like pulling teeth to even have a conversation with her, or more than one word answers, or to get together. And it was, no, you haven't lost me, and let's get together. And I left it in her court, and I haven't heard a peep since. And you know what? At first it was, um, why? And seeing her do all this other stuff with other people and getting into that loneliness spot, but then realizing the loneliness was better than trying to force something that wasn't going to happen.
So
And I moved past it.
yeah,
And
so
I'm good.
truth. I kind of like this phrase. So truth isn't dangerous; it's disruptive, right? We're not
Mhm.
doing it to hurt somebody, but we do have to kind of take the cards, throw them in the air, and have a conversation about how they fall. But it always rearranges what's misaligned. It dissolves what's false, and it brings forward what's real. So what you figured out with that situation is the comment may not have been as genuine as it felt in writing, and then the follow up truly was not. There was no follow up, which just spoke
Right.
even louder, right? So truth feels threatening because it's the doorway to
Right.
freedom, and freedom requires shedding everything that was built on fear. And when people can't get past fear, they can't get into that deeper truth. I see you shuffling, Nicole. Do you have a card you were?
Oh yeah, just having conversation over here. I was just dropping something in the public chat for anybody who watches live or is watching this. Who are you when nobody needs anything from you was kind of just what I wanted you guys just to kind of reflect on and sit with, because a lot of the times we base our value system based off of what we could produce and what we can be doing. And so I just wanted to drop that in card wise. I actually had in this like stuck. It wouldn't even let me go anywhere else. I really loved it with what you guys were talking about, but it was peace, dissolving unwanted and disturbing thoughts. So pretty much when I get into my shuffling, a lot of the times it's because there's like mixed messaging, and I like it when these kind of cards come through, especially when they fall in line with what we're literally talking about. So it's showing in the energy of like what's going on. Like the other one was perception beyond the veil of illusion. And when you're talking about disruption and stuff like that, I look at that as disturbing, disrupting your limiting beliefs, your thoughts, right? Your thought patterns. Or yeah, because inevitably that's going to be what is constricting or freeing your truth, right? And then I
Yeah,
got retribution.
because
It's the worst part.
you've got it goes back to having to be uncomfortable to get comfortable. And I often push my clients into a space where I say, I want you to do something over the next couple days that you've been afraid to do because you didn't know what the outcome would be or how it would play out or how your emotions settled into that space. And then I want to talk about what happened after you did it. Right. And there's more of that liberation in that, oh, I spent more energy stressing out about that than I did getting through that conversation.
Oh my God, our what if scenarios and everything else. Sorry, when you were talking, I just got hit with something. Messages are crazy today. And the biggest thing is that mental health is going to be the new physical health. So instead of going to the gym and trying to get these big muscles and everything else, it's going to actually be mental health driven. I just thought that was extremely interesting because of the cards that kind of came out. Um, and very much with what we're talking about, right? The buildups beforehand, the what if scenarios, the worry, and then when the relief that happens after. It's kind of like being able to have these scary conversations. There, when was there a time that the buildup actually ended up being true? Like, what evidence was there to support that thought that you were having? That belief that you were having, that limiting belief. Because when you can challenge it, then you start to really kind of start seeing the power. Because I'll use an example. This weekend when we were in class and we were talking about like somebody not wanting to get on a plane. They don't want to get on a plane. They got back into their car to go home, which I thought was interesting, given something that happened with an Italy trip a long time ago. So when this girl brought this up, this kind of came to me. But we'll leave that. I know, Dad. We'll leave that alone. But the thing of it was she wouldn't get on there every time because she's seen in the news that people get into accidents, that airplanes crash, this, that, and the other, right? But then there was, what is the evidence that you will get into this plane and this plane will crash? So when we can start to identify a little bit deeper, instead of looking at the overall fear, and we start to kind of break it down a piece at a time, we can start seeing more of what's really going on there than the allowance of fear that we're having take over the truth, like an umbrella. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Your umbrella is your duck and cover.
No, like
No.
the umbrella being, let me think. Mm, seeing it like, because when we can get into, like, this person was looking at, because they saw it online that it meant that they were going to die in a plane crash, right? That's just where became a phobia, right?
Hmm.
However, when you can start to really ask questions to that belief, it's almost like you're no longer allowing it to freely play a narrative in your head. You're now stopping it in its tracks, acknowledging it, and trying to understand, what is this doing for me? What evidence is there that really supports this? So then that way we can get stuck in the cycle of looking at the big overall fear. We can start breaking down the pieces. So then that way we're not duck and covering anymore. Does that make sense? Because in all reality, the umbrella, I guess the umbrella kind of protects, but with the way that I was seeing it, I wanted to, I guess the way that I am visualizing it is the breakdown, because a lot of the times we put just so much into a situation, like we blow it so out of proportion of what's really trying to happen there, is pretty much what I'm trying to get at. And when we can come back into presence and mindfulness, um, and really kind of having the conversation with ourselves first. Like, before we can have a conversation, uncomfortable conversation with somebody else, you got to be able to have it with yourself first. so you can kind of understand, why are all these feelings coming up? Why is this so important for me right now? Why is this creating? These are all Tina's whys. Now, when it comes to therapy, we're not supposed to use the word whys, because that can be a little stressful. But when you're doing this work for yourself, you do want to understand the why. Like, why is this carrying on for me? How is this developing my reality? I mean, there's so many different. You can do how, why, what, where. Ask all the W's, the H. Well, ask them. Ask the questions.
Well, and the whys allow you a little more vulnerability and accountability, because if you never stop to think about the why, you may, by that third why, figure out, what am I wasting? I could do this. It just took me a little time to get there to understand it.
Or it has its process that it needs to go
Mhm.
through. Like, we can't jump 1 to 10 without the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I mean,
Right.
there might be a couple we could skip over, but you might miss something there that's an opportunity for growth.
Right.
Ooh, guess what time it is? Woo, woo, woo. Let's bring in Stephanie's purposeful pause. If my dogs bark, I'm going to headbutt myself.
It's your own fault if they do. Okay. So let's take a breath. Let's take one that just kind of drops your shoulders. Big deep breath. Now imagine this. For a moment, no one needs anything from you. Not your family, not your friends, not your job, not your roles, your responsibilities, or the version of you that performs all of those. Just you without the pull of expectation. Let the question rise slowly. Who are you when nobody needs anything from you? Not the mask, not the helper, not the strong one, not the spiritual one, not the one who always knows what to say. Just the quiet truth of you. Notice what comes up in the silence. A feeling? Is it a memory? A longing? A version of yourself you haven't met in a while? This is the space where your authentic self starts to speak to you. This is where your truth shadow often softens enough to be seen. This is where the performance falls away and the real conversation begins. Now stay here for one more breath. Not to fix anything, not to figure anything out, just to feel what it's like to exist without being needed. And when you're ready, come back, but bring whatever truth that surfaced back with you. So I think this is a great thing for everybody to do, whether it's the first thing you do in the morning, the first thing or last thing you do before you go to bed, or just any time that you feel like you're being pulled. Just sit with yourself and think about that. Think about what it's like when nobody needs anything, and just, find yourself.
I love that, because it's important. We could be so much for everybody else, but at the end of the day, who are we to ourselves when nobody's around?
Well,
Is the so
that's what I was
important.
just going to say is, so what's the question about, what do you need for yourself or from others?
Yeah, and I'm at a stage of life where I'm just like, what do I
Right. I don't
need?
think we think about that enough.
Nope.
Mm-mm. I do now more than
What about me?
Yeah, yeah, it's important though. But at the end of the day, when we ask ourselves that question, we always ask ourselves that question because we had expectations from others. So that's why the what about me card happened, right? But if we can look at it and be like, well, what about me to myself? Not because expectations weren't meant from others, but where am I not meeting my own expectations that I'm letting myself down at? And that usually
Hmm.
falls to the what ifs, the people pleasing, avoidance. Like, there's definitely different things that are there, but when we can start identifying those, putting words to those and understanding to those, then we can start to challenge them And when we can start challenging them, then we start challenging ourselves. And then we start kind of challenging dynamics, uneven power dynamics. That's a huge one playing out right now. Was our relationship real, deep, have substance, surface level, or was it just like for show? You know what I mean? Like those, like, oh my God, we're the best of friends, blah, blah. Dude, I went to high school with you. You have no clue the life that I've lived in the last 30 years. You don't know me. Or funny one. This was the best thing I ever heard, right? My ex-husband, his cousin or whatever, guy's always been a tool bag. Always from the first fucking day I met him. And everybody else says the same thing. But anyways, he's got a kid, and his kid, I mean, she just graduated high school, has this perception of me, whatever it looks like. But if I ever have a sit down conversation with this girl and ask, all I hear is it's what my father's always said. And like, okay, what has your father said? Because I haven't talked to that man but a whole 5 words since I ever knew him, nor have I even had a conversation with him or him been a part of my life for the past 10 years. Do you realize that I'm 200 pounds lighter? I'm sober. I'm a vegetarian. I'm becoming a therapist. I've got a bachelor. Like, there's so many to list off about myself that it's like that's where you guys got to start sitting at. Not what people's perceptions once were of you at some point when you were just learning how to navigate your life. What does it look like now? What is it the people that are in your court now look like? So I just wanted to share that point because a lot of times, had I not been doing the work that I've been doing, a conversation like that probably would have had me feeling insecure. You get what I'm saying? So be honest and sit with yourself at the work that you have done, and not the I'll say the opportunities that arose that were difficult for you to grow from. The instead of looking at it as like you did something wrong, because life's battles are your wins and your gains to use for wisdom moving forward in life. Dang,
Hmm.
got that, Mike.
Would be interesting to figure a spin on this conversation for those who still have self confidence issues.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. On that note, absolutely. Because I mean, go ahead. Sorry, if you were going to continue, I thought you were asking me the question.
Well, I was just thinking, like, how do we help people that haven't navigated the work that you did for yourself to start to understand how they can become confident in their own work?
Step one for me, and this might look different for everybody else. Step one for me was removing anybody and anything, one puzzle piece at a time, that was driving insecurities within me. Does that make sense? That was a part of the limiting beliefs. Uh, Whether that was getting honest about substances that I was already mindful that weren't the best for me, but still not understanding, next steps. It's kind of one of those things, like just kind of sitting with yourself and doing a real life check on what you have in your environment. I say that was step one for me. And then from there it was journaling, trying new things. Those are really great ways to help boost your confidence and self-esteem, is getting playful with yourself again. What does your inner child need right now to smile? And kind of go in that route. Not over analyzing it, not looking at it so serious, not looking at it from the big picture, but just being playful with yourself and doing that in a way that you're in a safe environment. And if you're in an environment where you're having a conversation with somebody and you feel like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth, and it's making you insecure, okay, that's somebody that you might need to push back. If there's another person that, like, you're trying to have a positive day, you're really uplifting, and this person is constantly negative or talking down to you or just pointing out every bad thing about what could be going on, that might be somebody that you need to distance yourself from for the time being. And getting honest, and that's where that can get threatening or feel threatening, is like, oh, these situations I've been in for a long time, these dynamics, these power struggles, I might need to honor myself and just kind of put a guard up and pull yourself away. And me doing that personally was life changing. That's where I felt like I started to begin my life and started
So
shedding the lives of others.
it would be, I wonder if it would be helpful to invite Betsy on to do a self image.
Go
No,
ahead.
I was just thinking like a self image type of session to help people understand how to move past their the way they look at themselves, the way they see themselves, and allow themselves to see what other people see in them.
I really like that you shared that because with the work that Betsy does, I feel that that could be a beautiful opportunity at some time to do.
When
Because
the
she was
timing is right.
yes, because she was very pivotal in helping me see for myself at every stage. Because when I started working with Betsy, I was at my, I would say, at my most unhealthiest in trying to, but at a place of wanting to change. Does that make sense? Like being aware that something needed to change. Sorry, that's a better way to explain it. And she definitely helped non-judgmentally, free spirited wise. She gave me that space and that container to really, yeah, I love how you said that, kind of identify what my image looks like for me and allowed that. And I really appreciated that. So I think that's a good, that could be something down the line that I would love to open up.
Because I think self confidence comes forward when you are physically, emotionally, mentally connected to who you truly are and can look at yourself and be, I'll just say a mirror. You look at yourself in a mirror and say yourself, tell yourself you're beautiful. Like inside and out, that radiance starts with that level of confidence. So I'd be really curious to see what kind of stories or tools or resources she's used to help people grow outside that comfort zone.
Oh yeah, I think that'd be great. It's definitely a lot of fucking, I'll be honest, for me personally, it's been a lot of work. I mean,
Yeah,
I
well,
don't,
that's what I'm saying.
yeah, yeah, and it's
Mhm.
constantly. It'll be consistently because you could have somebody or something show up in your environment that kind of throws off that confidence, right? And it's usually it's
Yeah,
because there's just some discomfort that you need to sit with,
right.
too. But yeah, yeah, no, I love that because even when your confidence does start to be challenged at times, there's definitely resources, opportunities. Betsy's got some good knowledge there with that. But yeah, yeah, the confidence is huge. Yeah, how are you? That's another thing we can drop in the chat is how are you viewing yourself? What is your, if we were to put it at a 1 to 10, what is our confidence level looking like today? Feel
Right.
like today, not look like. What is our confidence?
You know, Tina, I did a 5-day thing with Betsy not that long ago, and I agree. I think that it would be amazing to have her on here. But while doing that, I found that I need to sit with myself more and find those things that bring out that confidence for me. And one of the things that we did was we had to write, like, think of like 20 things that you want to do. And I started off with all of these things that I wanted. I wanted to go halibut fishing and king salmon fishing, all these things like that. But then as I got down and we got more in depth into the 5 days, I realized that everything changed. And I wanted to, it was more about grounding myself and finding, like my confidence in my true self. And then by doing that, I'll be able to go ahead and do these other physical things that I was so excited to do. So I definitely think that confidence comes from sitting back and, like Nicole said, journaling. I like to journal and just writing down those things that you want for yourself. And I think as you focus on those and think about those more and, bring those into fruition, that confidence is going to come up.
Well, and I agree, and I think that's probably why Betsy starts off with this list, because we always start with the things that have nothing physically to do with us, right? So we start with fishing. We want to go on a trip. We want to do this, and then all of a sudden you're bringing it back to, well, where's your self-worth on this list? Who are you? What's your identity?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you bring it? What do you want to change? Why are you ashamed of yourself? Well, who told you you're not good enough? Like, those are the things that I think would be interesting for people to learn, to break through, so that they can become more confident in these conversations that we're having, setting boundaries, being authentic, being truthful.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do a lot of this work unless you are self-confident.
Yeah, people always say,
Right.
like, fake it till you make it. And to some extent, I mean, fake it till you make it could be more of like when I say using delusion, if you need to call it that, or just changing the narrative. I would like
Right.
even better. I'd like to say that even better, because I got to a place where I was like, I want to be, or I am this, like those affirmations, which are great. They're great, especially when you're looking in the mirror. But what I think is even better is when we use the word I'm becoming. Because I, for myself, when I started looking in my mirror every day, and that was a change that I had to do, I had to accept every part of my being, of how I looked when I would look in the mirror, and I would say, I am becoming the best version of myself. I would say it all day long, but I started noticing that I was using more of these affirmations when I was having moments of insecurity or maybe lower on the confidence. And I noticed that what it was doing was it was reigniting this kind of spark in me over time, because then my choices started changing a little bit. The maladaptive behaviors that I was once having were starting to become more healthier habits, more
Right.
conscious habits, that were just adding to that becoming. So, even along with the journaling, absolutely. Brain dumping is everything. Mental dump is so important to do in the morning and at night, especially if you have a lot of mental overload. Um, because when you do that, say before bed, you gain more clarity when you're sleeping. Literally, like you'll have more prophetic dreams, understandings, clarity. And then in the morning time's great, because you're still in such a sleep mode and you get any of that mental dump load off. Then you're going out throughout your day actually in more alignment with your authentic truth, because you've already gotten that mental overload out. Because remember, our mind is created for pattern recognition. That's what the tool is for. So when we can start breaking some of the patterns that we no longer want to carry moving forward, it's important to do things like this in order for that to achieve that. That makes sense.
Yes, it makes perfect sense.
Oh my goodness, guys, we're almost at the end of the hour. So guess what time it is? Tina's reflection time.
All right. Yeah.
You have to look on like you just got in trouble, like you weren't ready for school.
No, I had to get my leg up off the chair so I could sit.
Oh, good.
All right. So as you sit with everything that surfaced today, notice what truth was stirred inside of you. Not the loud, the dramatic kind, the subtle one, the one that whispered instead of shouted, the one that made your chest tighten just a little. Ask yourself, what truth have I been circling but not quite naming? What part of me feels threatened by it? And what part of me feels relieved? Let your body answer before your mind tries to negotiate. Truth isn't here to expose you, it's here to free you. And the shadow that rises in response isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is ready to be seen, ready to be integrated, ready to be running your life from behind the scenes. So take that one breath for the version of you who protected you this far, and one breath for the version of you who's emerging now. You don't have to rush. You don't have to force clarity. You only have to stay honest with yourself in small, consistent ways. And the reason I really appreciated trying to keep this reflection was when we started off our conversation, it was all about what we're not exposing. That curtain, right? So that one that whispered, that one truth that whispered instead of shouted is the one you're hearing the most versus the ones that are much more chaotic.
And that always happens in the slowdown. Presence, mindfulness. Mindfulness is everything. Again, mental health is the new physical health. Like,
Yeah.
train your mind, train your life. It's really, really important in order to change your beliefs, your limiting belief systems. I'm living proof of it. I mean, the world is in many ways, and also honoring the death of self, because you're going to have many deaths throughout your life. And I mean this identity deaths, like, because you're shifting, and honoring those, not being ashamed of them, not being afraid of them, but honoring them, and gaining the wisdom from them, and knowing that life's most difficult and painful challenges are always end up being the biggest opportunities, for growth, for truth, and for service moving forward, even if in the time it is the most difficult to see it that way. And allowing yourself that grace, and knowing that you are human, and that when you're in the muck of it, it will be and feel like the most worst thing happening to you. And how are you ever going to get out of it? And you won't get out of it, you'll get through it. And using your support systems, everything. We're not meant to walk this earth alone. And that's another thing. If you're somebody who is very much trying to keep to themselves, maybe even being open minded to getting yourself into groups that have similar interests as you. Or, and I mean that, guys, we want to provide tools, and resources, because life can be very challenging when we think that we have to do it, live it, breathe it alone. There are people out there, even if they're not. And the word family, guys, it fucking changes from person to person. At the end of the day, fucking, I'm not close to any of the fucking blood members for the most part that I was born in with. But it doesn't mean that it won't change in time, because there's ones that I want to. But it's also okay if there's ones that you don't want to continue a relationship with. Because what will happen is those family members that will leave, they will be replaced by people who will honor this truth in which you are speaking and walking in now. That's kind of where I want to close that, for me anyway.
Yeah, I would say, the
I found
hardest
something when I was looking at this. Sorry.
You got your
My delay.
You're good.
I found something while I was looking at stuff for today, and I just kind of wanted to read this quote that I found. It says, "Truth threatens the version of you that was built to survive, not the version of you that was born to live. Truth asks you to stop performing the version of yourself that kept you safe, but the moment you step out of performance, you step into your life."
You should put that in the live comment box, and we should use that quote for the heading for our description of today's podcast, because I think that's beautiful. Yeah, I think that's good. I think
I would, but I can't type it because I'm on my phone.
I like your honesty, Kit. Well, shit. Okay, well then just send it over when you can, and then I'll add it into the description for later. Sorry, you won't be in the comments, but it'll be in the description if you guys listen for later. So, all right, everybody. As I always say, it's Monday for one, and for two, Actually, before I say the thing I always say, let's talk about Wenye. We've got Wednesday's episode coming in, and on Wednesday, we will be coming back and talking about the spiritual ego versus spiritual growth. And I think it's pretty on par with what we're talking about, energetically, collectively, individually. Is what is the difference? And I think it's important. I think it's going to be a great conversation because a lot of egos are being triggered. Everything's coming to the surface, and we're going to be here to talk about it. But as I always say to you, beautiful souls, you woke up today because your soul still has purpose on this planet. Please go out there and live it as authentically true to you as you possibly can. In a world full of performance and performers, live your truth. Love and light, beautiful souls.
I now have my own closing.
Go, go. This is great. Surprise.
Take what resonated, leave what doesn't, and keep returning to yourself.
Boom. Mic drop. Hey, that gave me head tingles. Yay. We should all have our closing, Steph. What you got? Well, you had that friggin' great quote too,
Yeah,
though.
she had that quote.
Yeah, I was saying, no, Steph, that look wasn't like in a bad way. I was saying, I meant to bring it to you, Steph, for your, if there was something you wanted to say before we close, I'm sorry. Because the look you just gave me, I was like, no, hold on. We're getting interpreted wrong. That's not how I meant that.
I didn't take it that way.
Okay. I was like, oh man, no, hold on, wait. That's funny. All right. Bye, everybody. We'll see you when, yay.
Have a good one.